Hey, what up, world? This is your boy Redbeard. If you haven't already, click that like button, subscribe, and hit that little bell to get them tasty notifications. Alright. As I'm sure most of you could guess by the title of this fucking video, we're gonna be talking about Star Wars The Last Jedi today. And to be honest, where do I even start? This movie is one of the biggest disgraces to source material and canon that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know that sounds a little hyperbolic, and I'm sure it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're just coming in looking to watch a great movie or be entertained, the movie is entertaining. I'm not gonna say it's a bad movie. Visually, it's stunning. And that can't be said enough, because it's probably the prettiest looking Star Wars film we've gotten up to date. They definitely did not cut corners when it came to budget and special effects and all that. I'll give credit where credit's due. Even though I don't like it, hey, you know what? They earned it. Now, as a Star Wars movie, this is a disgrace. All previously established lore and canon and mythos and everything was just thrown out the window. You know what? It's like Rian Johnson went to Disney. Actually, see, everybody throws the Disney hate train, and I'm not going to go down that path. The first place to go would be Rian Johnson, and then after that, Lucasfilms, because they have to approve everything before it goes through. So, with that being said, Kathleen Kennedy, how did you get this job? Seriously, the last 3 movies you've come out with have been the most disappointing movies in almost all of Star Wars. Now, we had The Phantom Menace and Clone Wars, or I apologize, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, which, hey, you know what? I personally don't mind the prequels as much as most people, especially Revenge of the Sith. Now, yeah, it had its corny writing and the George Lucas-ness that was just dialogue of people that have never talked to another human being in their entire life. But with that being said, it still sounded, looked, acted like Star Wars. Regardless of the poor dialogue or overuse of CGI, you still got that feeling that, hey, I'm watching a Star Wars movie. With this movie, aside from over-the-top space battles, a little bit of the Force, and the occasional lightsaber, you would never be able to tell that this was a Star Wars movie. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Obviously, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of reviews, both negative and positive, out there on the film. I'm going to try to do this a little bit differently than all the other ones, because honestly, most of them are just people whining, bitching, complaining, and they don't really back up any of the reasons why they weren't happy. So I'm going to go through my lists that I got here, both the good and the bad, and then extrapolate a little bit out of that as to why exactly I'm unhappy. So we'll start off with the good. Some of the good, as I mentioned in the intro, the general audiences seem to love this movie. The critics unabashedly love this movie, to the point where it's got, I believe, a 93 or 94 on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregate score, and you can't always take that 100%. You have to take it with a grain of salt, because I've learned this in life, that people who are upset are way more likely to complain or rate it poorly, or even rate it in the first place. Most people who are happy are just happy, go on their way, have positive word of mouth, and tell people they know about the film. People that are pissed off are way more likely to do everything and anything they can to have their voices heard. But with that being said, I think it's a little strange that the critic score is a 93, and as of right now, December 18th, 2017, The fan score sits at a 56%. As I said, take it with a grain of salt, but that is the largest disconnect out of all the Star Wars movies, even the prequels. Attack of the Clones, a movie that is just irredeemable other than one or two scenes, sits at a 57%. Think about that. The prequels, which for the last 10 years, it's become the cool thing to hate on them and rip them apart, and don't get me wrong, they're pretty terrible, but it's Star Wars. And this movie is the lowest ranked movie in the entire franchise. Now, there could be multiple reasons for that, but I feel that they're pretty justified. The fans are upset. Now, I know there's a huge split down the line. I mean, this is one of the most divisive films that I can remember in recent memory, to be honest. Star Wars is more than just a film. The franchise itself has ingrained itself so deeply in our culture, and not even just our culture, all around the world. I mean, it's a worldwide phenomenon. These aren't just movies, these are events. People dress up, and people, I mean, I have tattoos, Star Wars tattoos, and people buy the books and the comics, and just, it is, the only way to put it is a cultural phenomenon, a juggernaut in the world. And I feel that gives you a little bit more incentive and a little bit more responsibility to put some thought and some care into the product. I don't expect it to be perfect. Star Wars has never been Oscar-winning, perfect, Christopher Nolan type films. That is not what we're looking for, and it's not what we expect. We expect Star Wars. Let's keep chugging on down this list. As far as the good, Kylo Ren. I personally adore this character. Now, I liked him after The Force Awakens, and I know that a lot of people don't. They think he's a whiny, pouty, teen angst, emo, just typical, I don't want to say poor writing, but he's a very stereotypical teenager in The Force Awakens, even though he's like 30 in that movie, but whatever. I still liked him. I thought his mask was badass. I thought the voice was badass. Adam Driver does an incredible job as this character. He's probably the most underrated part of both of these films. I also love that we saw some new Force abilities that we've never seen before. I mean, Vader, was deflecting and blocking blaster fire, but Kylo straight up froze it and froze Poe at the exact same time, and that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie. I loved it, and here he doesn't disappoint. Adam Driver does an incredible job. He acts the shit out of this role. You actually believe him when he's explaining why he's torn, and he's a great facial actor. You see the emotions coming through in his eyes and his face, the way he manipulates, and just the subtlety of which he does things really should be, commended. This man is single-handedly trying to save this new sequel trilogy, but unfortunately it seems like the directors and Lucasfilm are doing everything they can to cancel that out and just shit on the legacy. In this movie, he grows as a character and is probably the only one in this film that actually has some real character development. When he's telling his story, spoilers by the way, I should have said that at the start of the video, but in case any of you weren't sure, this is definitely going to be a spoiler review, because as we get into this, I'm going to start going off. The scene where he's talking to Rey, telling her about what happened at the Jedi Academy. That whole sequence where first we see it from Luke's point of view, telling Rey, then Kylo explains how he saw it, and then the third time around, we get the truth of what had actually happened. And to be